Now, out of that same period, or that same kind of asana, if you will, came the book, The Way That I Teach, because that became a real defining moment in his teaching, is that uncompromising position, because the way that I teach is really addresses that whole point of view.
It does. Those talks were given during some of that same period of time. Our initial work was to document everything that was happening, to edit every talk he gave. But we founded the Dawn Horse magazine, the first magazine that had been published, dedicated to his work. And we initially devoted that to important pieces of his teaching that had not been captured in the method of the Siddhas or the Knee of Listening. So those early editions of the Dawn Horse magazine are among the things that I love the most about the work I was able to do for him as his editor. They're very transmissive, they're very full of the life and the innocence of that early time.
But they also bring in the traditions in which address or work with this basic, because I remember in the beginning there were a lot of articles on Buddhism. A lot of...
Well, that was the Laughing Man.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, there were, but that was a year or so later.
Ah, okay.
Because I had the privilege to be involved in the founding of three magazines, the Dawn Horse, the Laughing Man, and Vision Mound, and Crazy Wisdom. Which was, so I was involved with the founding of all those, but I was a secondary editor after a while. I was right at the center of things through the period called Indoor Summer.
76.
Yeah, but after that I became more, I was sort of in the secondary squad. Which is, I don't know how much time we'll have, but, if I tell my whole story, there's a whole series of progressions.
One of the things that we will return to is the Leelas that you do have. I wanted to move forward to your connecting that foundation to your present work, which is with the transpersonal. I'm not even quite sure how to name it. Because it's so inclusive. I don't want to put you just with a Ken Wilber label on you, because your work is really it's so vast, it's so inclusive, and you've got your own coursework, your own materials, and your own writings. So, and plus you travel the world. You go to the Middle East, and you go to Europe, and all over, and so you work with an awful lot of people. And you've done an interview series with, I don't know how many people you've interviewed, but...
About 3 dozen now.
3 dozen. So let's just touch on a couple of things. You're doing an interview series today.
It's called Beyond Awakening, the Future of Spiritual Practice. And it's a series of dialogues with spiritual teachers and thought leaders on the theme of how can spirituality help the human race rise to meet the existential challenges of our particular crisis time. Many of us entered the path seeing that human beings were beginning to face problems that couldn't be solved with the kind of consciousness that had created them. And presumably our spirituality was going to enable us to show up with a different kind of consciousness that would be adequate to meet these challenges. But we don't really see that manifesting yet. Does spirituality itself need to evolve? How can we meet this? What does spirituality have to offer? So I ask that question in a variety of ways to many of the best known spiritual teachers of pretty much every tradition and no tradition.
So how would people find that interview series on you?
If you just type into your browser, Go Beyond Awakening, gobeyondawakening.com, you'll find yourself at the landing page. You can register and then have free access. All these are, they're 90-minute or so. Some of them go on a little longer, but generally there's an hour-long dialogue between me and the guest for that session, and then a half an hour or so in which we take questions from listeners.
Mm-hmm. And you also have a course now that you have developed.
Yeah, I should give a little context. I wrote a book with Ken Wilber and two younger colleagues called Integral Life Practice, and I was a part of a core team that worked with Ken at Integral Institute to develop Integral Life Practice, which is, it has a relationship to Integral Transformative Practice, which was developed by Michael Murphy, the founder of Esalen, and George Leonard, who coined the term the Human Potential Movement. They were in part inspired a little bit by Sri Aurobindo and his integral yoga. So there's a tradition that is attempting to bring together the brilliance of the ancient wisdom traditions with the insights of modernity and post-modernity in an integrated way. And I participated with Ken in the formation of that into kind of a coherent offering that someone could take up and practice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Integral Life Practice is. And I'm the person who has taught that most. But I bring a great deal more richness into the way I teach it in the form of a course that I've recently formulated. It's an 8-session course that can enable people to take on a daily, doable, but profound and truly spiritually potent and practice, a practice that has enough demand in it to be transformational and enough compassion in it to be healthy. And I call that integral spiritual practice, and that is available on the web. There is a free lecture that I've done that's available at a website that you can get to, ispseminar.com. And then if there's a sales page where you can register for the course and enroll in it, that's at theispcommunity.com.
Okay.
And these are sales pages. The course itself, I say that they're sales pages in that they're pages that are sales copy that were written by my publisher to sell my materials. What I've done in it, and I think people who are familiar or really moved in any real way, or recognizing something about Adida, will be more interested in what I actually did with the course itself, which has to do with offering the first level of the inestimable gifts that I was given by Adida, and I'm still being given, in being true to that, but also being true to my rigorous engagement with the world that people live in and what is possible and what can be spoken in a public way. That is not cultic, that is not confusing, that is not so uncompromising that it doesn't meet people where they are. And I feel like I've been able to deliver that in a way that is spiritually fragrant and profound.
Which brings up a question for me. Because the Beezone covers a lot of different traditions and teachers and mainly focuses on Adida. And so I get to mix up my my interaction with people from a lot of different traditions. And although in private, a lot of the teachers today not only integral spirituality and transpersonal, but even in Dzogchen and other traditions that are teachers today, respect Adida and have a great respect for his word, but will not publicly say anything positive or even associate themselves in any way, form, or fashion with Adida. And one of the things that's so salient about your work within this integral spirituality work is I don't know of anybody else who's so honest with his connection to Adida. So my question to you is, what is the taboo with speaking or associating with Adida in the culture of spirituality?
I'm tempted to give a really thoroughgoing and rigorous response to that, and I think it would go on too long, so I'll try to digest it down to something simple. One, he absolutely challenges the self-contraction in everyone, and that is inherently threatening, and therefore he's always been the impossible, difficult man who was unacceptable to the cult of the world. So that is operating behind the scenes throughout all of this. Additionally, there's been a very strong movement to reject the guru. There are a lot of issues around spiritual authority and how it can be misused. And we've had scandal after scandal after scandal in which teachers have taken advantage of their students sexually and financially, and they've related to power in ways that have been seen to be abusive. And there's an extensive online and culture-pervading conversation about how can we get the benefit of these profound, awakened spiritual beings without somehow drinking the Kool-Aid and losing our critical faculties and submitting to abuses that damage people. So there's there's an anti-guru kind of disposition in our time, such that any guru, and this applies. I'm friends now with Andrew Cohen, who's a guru who's part of the current conversation in an active way. He has a great deal of trouble finding any acceptance for reasons that have something to do with his own personality and his own way of doing things, for sure. But a good chunk of it simply has to do with the fact that he is a guru. That gurus are guilty until proven innocent of violating the autonomy or the freedom or the healthy development of their student. There is a cultural bias against the guru tradition that is becoming so formidable. You just can't underestimate how big a deal that is. And then with Adida, we have websites that are devoted to outing his abuses. He's accused of, I wrote the ceremony for a wedding ceremony in which he was married to 9 women. I know he's had many sexual dalliances with a great variety of partners. That's public knowledge. On these websites, though, he's accused of abusing people, of rape, of horrible things. I mean, it goes on and on and on.